Get ready to feel
the power.
That's Colin, Crandall, myself, Adam Roorda, with another episode of MMA Power Hour coming at you. This is our 11th season, 10th episode, actually. Pretty crazy. We've been doing it for that long.
Tell you, man, 5.5 years, and we've
Usually
hardly
2, 3, 4 guests. I mean, it gets crazy around here tonight. It's going to be a short one for you folks out there, but thank you so much for tuning in. And I want to let you all know that this episode is brought to you by Lith Token. It is LITH token.io when you want to go look it up. I am actually the blockchain architect, so I've been building out cryptocurrency that chains over, bridges over to other chains. But also we are tying in physical NFTs, a brand new technology that we are introducing to the world here shortly. It was supposed to be out on the 27th, but we've run into a few hiccups, so I'm getting it out here still shortly, working hard with my team of developers, and that's going to be a game changer, guys. So definitely check out Lith Token. And I know cryptocurrency is kind of big in the fight scene and fight world, and wrestling community as well. Just check out Lith Token. It's a real deal. It's a utility project. It's not a hype project. It's not meant to be like Bored Ape Yacht Club or Shiba Inu or any of that stuff.
Not a pump and dump.
It's not a pump and dump whatsoever. So you do with it what you want. We do urge that you handle things on your own responsibly. Don't go out there and speculate too heavy. If you want to, go ahead. But it is about adoption and getting in and utilizing the utility that we're building out. So cool things there, and we'll get into other stuff because you know what, this is an MMA related show, and we've got some good fights coming up this weekend.
We do, and I'd like to say I'm the blockchain architect of much of the MMA content on this show, so there's always that. I had to throw that in. I wanted to be a blockchain architect also. I didn't want you to have all the fun.
I mean, so you can want to be, but do you know what a blockchain architect even
does? Of course not. Of course I don't. Why would I? But I just have the feeling I might be the blockchain architect. I'll tell you what, here we go. I'll even make it more clear. I'm the blockchain architect of securing the guests for the most part on this show.
No.
I'm not?
No, because you're not bridging the actual tech stack of the cryptocurrency to the guests in any way, shape, or form. Although if you were to figure that out and figured out how to develop the actual smart contracts to communicate with the individual guests, sure,
that would be something, and I'll bet you even then communication would still be difficult.
Yep.
We know that, but we do appreciate our guests and always enjoy this. The process is sometimes tough, I will tell you that, but the guests,
I mean, if you can get it to plug into their brains and stuff,
man,
start communicating with Elon Musk, start working with Neuralink, and go the whole nine.
That would be amazing. I would be the possibly one of the least likely blockchain architects that turns out to be,
I mean, you want me to ghost develop
I
here?
might have
Maybe
to
I
have
can
you.
figure
You might have
it
to be
out.
my ghost developer. There
You
we go.
find the fighters that want to get involved with Neuralink and can communicate with Elon Musk on that, and then I will. I'll pretend to be you.
I like that. That sounds like a good idea. That reminds me of an old movie that I saw that was from the 60s called The President's Analyst with James Coburn. And the phone company was trying to gain a lot of power and put chips in people's heads so that they could telecommunicate like that without actual telephones.
I'll be real though. Neuralink and everything that's going on with the technology that Elon's building with that, I think fighters are actually going to be some of the first people to be utilizing Neuralink because it is about stimulating different aspects of the nervous system to be able to fight different ailments associated with pretty much similar elements like CTE and stuff
That's
like
important.
that. So
that is seriously
I think it will really be beneficial for fighters in the near future. And heck, if they really would want to hack into the metaverse, I would help them do it.
Well, see, maybe we'll put the word out there, and man, we can end up being the universe hackers covering combat sports.
Yeah,
I wouldn't mind that.
In our last episode, I got a little bit of an attitude as somebody was talking a little smack, and I really just wasn't having it. Wasn't in the best mood. But hey, frankly, everybody that tunes in, I am one of the world's biggest nerds, and I am proud of it. I really am. So I want to let you all know that. And that's why I can sit here and talk shop with fighting as well, because I love the statistics around it. I love the different elements tied in with it. And I actually, believe it or not, this skinny little guy used to wrestle. I was in Taekwondo growing up. I have also taken Kung Fu instruction. Kung Fu I kind of laugh at, but you know, Jiu-Jitsu I've rolled quite a bit. You know, so being a huge nerd that I am, I have obsessed over a lot of the different aspects of mixed martial arts, and Colin's kind of the same way. So you want to call us nerds, go ahead, but just be careful on some of the other stuff that you guys say out there. We're not all about getting trolled to the extent that you just get to disrespect us or our guests.
Exactly, and I know Hannibal doesn't want that either on Hannibal TV. I mean, yeah, like Adam just said, I mean, not only the Adam Wrestler was in Iowa, where you have the more killers in you know, high school wrestling and junior high than anywhere in the world. And I may be an older guy, but I've trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for many years. I've trained Muay Thai.
I'll throw it out there. I'm a scrappy little guy, but guess what? Most of you guys that want to talk that, I mean, you're one of those people. It's like, oh yeah, okay, your anger's gonna help you out. No, it won't.
No, exactly. So it's like neither of us.
I'm half your size, and I could probably take you down and take at least handle the situation appropriately and restrain you. Like, believe me, I can do more than you think.
Exactly.
It's not about that anyways. I don't want to do that.
No, exactly. So I guess what we're trying to say is, for people coming on trying to say we look like shitheads, we look like dickheads, this, that, whatever, we look like so on and so forth. You know, both of us have spent many years training in combat sports. We're not saying we beat any active competitors today, but as far as like trying to say we're goofball nerds, whatever, you're probably the one who is that if you're saying that. And if you want to jump in and talk this shit, guess what? We don't care. And do we want to argue with you? No, we'll just boot you out of here and block you. So, you know, anyone else, you know, we're happy to have interaction, but you know, it is what it is. So
no, and I love a little bit of trolling as long as it's done the right way and classy. You know, but if you come at us directly with a full intention of just smack talking us or our guests, the reason that upsets me is because we put a lot of time into bringing in guests and having respectful interviews, getting the insights that you guys want.
Right.
And it's really critical and important that we try to keep a certain level of respect. And if you guys don't want to, honestly, like Colin said, we'll just boot you. That's all there is to it.
Exactly. Because we're not going out there calling anyone out. We're not out there denigrating fighters. We're not out there saying we're going to beat a UFC fighter in a fight, or we're badass, or we're the toughest media guys in the world. We're not saying any shit. We're not talking trash. So we just would rather people don't come in and talk mad, sickening trash, you know, using derogatory terms with us. So that's all we ask. But anyway, everyone else, we're super grateful for your participation. And we are still, what are we, about 5 minutes away from our guest? 7 minutes away.
Yeah.
So
well, let's actually go over this real quick, because you and I were talking about it.
Yes.
And I would say let's do it after our interview, but let's do it before real quick, just because I think the odds on this are just so off base between David Onama and Nate Landwehr.
Yeah,
I think it's actually... it should be opposite. It should be flipped the other direction with Nate Landwehr as the favorite.
Exactly, and I agree. And I know Onama looked really good starching his opponent really quick, but the person he starts and the people he's fought are not of the same caliber as Nate the trained Landwehr. Landwehr is a double tough guy. He beat Ludovic Klein and submitted him. Klein in his next fight completely owned his opponent, who was a really good fighter. So Landwehr is tough. Julian Erosa is tricky. He was on a good little streak there, and he caught Landwehr with a flying knee. And but Landwehr is just a tough dude. That's the bottom line.
I mean, to me, the fight that sticks out in my brain with Landwehr that really made him shine as a tough dude is Darren Elkins.
Yes, I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
That was a war.
Yeah, Elkins is the kind of guy that unless you kill him virtually, unless you knock him unconscious, he's going to come back and he's going to end up grounding the shit out of you, grounding and pounding the shit out of you, or submitting you. And Landwehr kind of like out Elkins, and that's rarely done, you know.
And that's interesting. There's like 4 guys over the last, I would say, 3 or 4 years that are really that way. And,
right.
You know, you've got Gaethje, you've got Darren Elkins, you've got Cerrone, and Landwehr, and those are the guys that are really that way. You're going to war. Every time.
Exactly, without a doubt.
So I just think the caliber of fight here, the opponent for Landwehr, this is actually kind of a low-hanging fruit opportunity.
Yeah.
Nothing against David Onama.
No.
He just hasn't been able to show face enough, and I think the odds should be the opposite. I'm actually going to go big on this one with Vegas.
I agree, like 5 units.
Throwing
or
it
something
out,
like that. Yeah, I agree. Now Onama is with James Krause over at Work Glory, and I actually just spoke with Krause earlier today, and we're trying to see if we can coordinate with him to come on next week. And huge respect for Krause. I called Krause.
And everybody over there, including David.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I called Krause, pointed out that he was in the corner of Brandon Moreno, and Brandon looked absolutely fantastic in winning his fight over Kai Kara France, winning the interim belt, getting it back, and setting up a 4th matchup with Davidson Figueiredo. But yeah, Krause is great. But yeah, in this case, I think Landwehr is going to give Onama all he can handle, if not more, and it's going to be a really good fight. There's several other interesting fights on the card. Yes, it does kind of smack of a fight night card, but fight night cards lately have been killing it. Not all the pay-per-views end up killing it, but the fight nights, it lets the guys fight even harder because they want to be on a pay-per-view, and all their friends can watch a fight night. Not everyone can afford $75 for a fight. I kind of, feel bad about the prices being that high now, Adam, because I mean, like, when MMA started, and I know it's different then, but when MMA started, I think the boxing was like $39.95 pay-per-view, and MMA was literally like $9.95. And then you fast forward 10 years later, boxing was like, $49.95 or $54.
I mean, hey, inflation is crazy. It's just there is a reality.
It's just I mean, it's equally as expensive as boxing now. And that was never the case. It used to be, to watch a great MMA card, you could save $20 over the boxing.
I think it should be as expensive as boxing, but here's
it's not that great for the fans, though. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's not that great for the fans, but at the same time, the athletes need paid. They need the pay-per-views higher to get them paid. Although there is the whole element of, hey, where is that money going when they do get such high high buyer counts?
And like, it only helps like 2 fighters on each card, and that's if the fighters are high profile enough to get any pay-per-view points. A lot of cards, the pay-per-view, you know what, I guess on every pay-per-view there's somebody big enough that's getting points, but sometimes not.
Oh no, they're getting points, Colin. That's one thing that actually was disclosed to me at one point. There's points that nobody really knows about.
On every main event, even the smaller main events, as long as they're pay-per-view,
they're getting points.
Okay, well, that's cool to know. But then the majority of the people on the card, the pay-per-view.
I mean, they're not the ones putting the seats, the butts in the seats for the most part, or actually pay-per-view buys. Maybe butts in the seats, but those are usually comp tickets and stuff like that. So I mean, you're starting to talk a whole different.
I know. I just want to see lower pay-per-view prices. I know everyone else.
Hey man, I've helped put on promotions. I know how it works. It's very, very expensive for them to break even every time. It's very costly, and unless they're breaking records, or coming close to in top 10 fights, honestly. Yeah, you have to bring that price up, otherwise you can't justify paying certain amounts to fighters, stuff like that. So there's a lot of things that people just discount, don't know about in the promotion world, and it is what it is. And I think even Leader Fiend's come in and had this conversation with us a few times. And
Jason, Leader Fiend. Yep, absolutely. I understand. I respect that, and it was good to do kind of a point counterpoint there, because a lot of times we really are on the same side on everything, and once in a while it's good to have a slight difference so we can present both sides. Okay, so I think we are...
Yeah, we're a couple minutes away, but he is online, so if you want to hit him up, we can go ahead and do it. We've had a good showing, actually, so far, everybody. Drop us some comments. We do see them. They come across our screen here. We can keep up with those. If you want to jump in as part of the conversation with questions and stuff, not as far as on screen, but if you want us to ask questions for you, we do ask during interviews with any guest, regardless of who they are. You throw out a tip on YouTube on the Hannibal TV, and we will receive that tip and make sure to ask that question as long as it's classy enough and fits the conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's go ahead and give.
Let's do it. Skype dance, baby.
Skype dance. Boom, boom, boom. Skype dance.
Hey, Jake, can you hear me?
Hello.
Excellent. We got you there, brothers. You're not going to be able to see us, but we'll make sure you see the show afterward, and everything looks fantastic. As usual, we'll do some split screens, and everything is great. So let me give you a proper introduction. And ladies and gentlemen, so happy to have this first guest on the show, in keeping with the line of experts and people that are just at the highest level of knowledge in the world of grappling. This man is the founder of Scientific Wrestling and the head coach. He's worked with MMA superstars like Frank Shamrock and Josh Barnett, and maybe even more importantly, with legendary catch wrestlers including Carl Gotch, Billy Robinson, Wade Schulis, Dick Cardinal, Yoshiaki Fujiwara, and more. And so I'm so happy to have on the show for the first time Mr. Jake Shannon. Welcome to the show, Jake.
Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
Well, thank you. So, catch wrestling, and I'm so excited because I've been aware of this for a good little while. I know Eric Paulson, and I've been talking to him a lot lately, and and also another friend of mine. I think I can call. Yeah, I've known Eric a little while. I'm going to call him a friend. I don't think maybe disagree. And then Judo Gene LaBelle, the legend, is a personal friend of mine, and also we have Curran Jacobs and Matthew Granahan, who you know, and so I am kind of having a connection to the world of catch wrestling, and I know you fit in there perfectly.
Yeah, it's interesting because honestly, it's only people that are kind of past the surface level of MMA grappling that really get to understand catch wrestling. And all those people you named, fantastic people doing a lot for the sport, and very grateful for him. Gene LaBelle is a very good friend as well, and I miss him dearly. I used to work out at his gym GoCore's gym in North Hollywood back in the early 2000s, and just a fantastic human. Catch wrestling is just, it's so interesting and fascinating, and Eric Paulson too, very great. Matt Granahan, who hooked us up. All great people. So yeah, it's a fascinating subject, to be honest.
Absolutely. And you know what? Forgive me for forgetting to throw in GoCore, who's a friend of mine and a really great guy. I don't know how the hell that happened. I guess it's getting later in the day and I'm old, which is probably why. But yeah, GoCore is amazing. And yeah, I never trained there, but I went over there several times. I've interviewed GoCore a couple times. And Gene, God bless him. And Gene's going to be 90 in October. And he is trying to keep it going. He's having some health problems lately, so if people watching this want to put out a good prayer that he can get stronger and regain his health, that would be really important to me. He's just a wonderful guy. I tell you, we interviewed Gene in late 2017. We did about a 70-minute interview. And we really normally like to keep it to 30 minutes, but I'm sure you'll understand with a legend like that, essentially the godfather of MMA, I wanted to go as long as I could. And it's a great episode. He wasn't wanting to even mess around with Skype or anything like that, which is okay, but he has the rights to so many amazing photographs with him and Chuck Norris, and him and Sylvester Stallone and James Caan and all kinds of people. So we were able to flash those pictures and cascade them actually throughout the interview. And I remember when I first called Gene to chat with him, he gave me his cell phone number. One of the first things he said, "This is not being recorded, is it?" And I said, "Absolutely not." I said, I would love to have you on for another interview whenever you want to, and you can trust that that's the only time that anything would ever be recorded. And since then, 5 years ago, I've probably had 30 or 40 conversations with him for an hour or even more. And when all is said and done, I wish they were recorded, or I wish I had like a photographic memory, because so many things I learned from Gene. But I tell you what, a lot of it is in my head that I'll never forget. And what a life. He actually, I think, is the longest active stuntman in the history of movie and television. I believe he actually was a stuntman working for 60 years.
Well, it's hard to miss him. If you watch movies, man, he's like in every other movie. If you actually know where to look, it's like uncanny.
Yes, and he was a double for James Caan, who just passed away. And just so many great stories. Talk about a guy that just grinded. I mean, I think the history of Gene LaBelle, along with his just brilliance and being probably the very first American mixed martial artist with the striking and the grappling, was just the ability to show up and the ability to take the punishment that stunts put on your body and do it for 60 years, as well as showing up and rolling with guys a quarter of your age on the ground to add the gravy to a day of having your body already pulverized. The guy's a complete stud, the likes of which we probably will never see again.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Gene is Uncle Gene, man. I really miss him, and I do wish him well. I know he's not doing too well, and I'm good friends with another person in the stunt industry, Noelle, who used to go by, Gene named her Noelle LaBelle.
Nice.
Back in the day. And he's just an incredible human being.
Yeah,
and
really
like
is.
you said, tougher than hell, but the nicest guy you ever meet too. Like, give you the shirt off his back.
Yeah, exactly. I first met him 5 years ago in person after we had done the interview, and when I went over to the go course in his school, he asked me to show him Kimura standing, or a double wrist lock. You know what I mean, right? And so I showed it to him, and I felt good about it. He said, "That's good." And he said, "But let me show you a little modification." And he did like a wrist lock at the bottom of the double wrist lock. It felt like all my fingers were about to disintegrate. And I was like, wow, yeah, like that is a good touch. And he showed me, but man, not only is a man strong, but a lot of these catch wrestling techniques are really amazing. And so let's jump into that. We know that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and catch wrestling have a lot of things in common. I believe that I don't just believe, catch wrestling certainly came first, going back, about 200 years or something, whereas Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu officially created by the Gracies. I think it was Carlos Gracie Sr. and Elio, or forgive me, and I know Elio. I know I'm not wrong on that, but I think Elio and one of his older brothers was the one that started the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. I'm not sure if you know, but I think that was about 80 years ago or close. Right now, I think he would have been like 20 or 21 then, and so catch wrestling preceded that by about 100 years. And doesn't diminish the goodness of the jiu-jitsu. But can you tell us a little bit, at least in your mind, and your mind should be 100% accurate, but I know there's always room for slight difference of opinions. But as far as your thoughts, what are some of the things in common with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and catch wrestling? What are the things that are different? And is there anything as far as like concept or theory that is really conflicting between the two, or not?
Yeah, so I think in common you find there's a number of commonalities. Obviously, the relevance given to the sport by MMA, right? MMA is really, that's what I've found is the driver for my business, Scientific Wrestling, and it is likewise the driver for all of the strip mall, McDojo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu places that have basically taken the place of all the strip mall, McDojo, Taekwondo in the 80s after the Karate Kid. So there is a lot in common in terms of, a real dependence upon MMA in terms of business. Now, in terms of actual sport, there's similarities insofar as that they're grappling-based sports. I'm going to be honest, like jiu-jitsu, and for somebody like yourself who knows these players and knows the history, this is not controversial at all, what I'm about to say. But for people who are newer to the sport, or maybe don't have really a lot of grappling literacy outside of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu marketing machine or the mainstream media marketing machine for mixed martial arts, obviously there's a commonality in terms of it's a grappling sport and you can win with submissions, but it changes a lot, right? Because catch as catch can is, and I feel even stupid saying this because there's never been a gi, so to call a catch no gi just is like kind of nonsensical.
Right. Redundant. Yeah.
You know, it was like normal wrestling attire. And that has changed over the years depending upon where you wrestle. Like when it was first starting, they would wrestle in gravel pits and bowling greens and on, you know, really rough grass. And so they'd wear like wool pants and things of that nature. But, you know, obviously as mats came in, that changed a lot of the dynamic in terms of what people wear gear wise. But you've never really had a gi. So, you know, the thing I think the easiest way to understand this is to put it in context. And I'm trying not to be, you know, controversial or crazy with my language here, exaggerating. But honestly, the impact of catch wrestling versus the impact of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has had a big impact. Don't get me wrong, but it is literally like a pimple on the ass of what catch wrestling has done.
Right.
And let me explain it this way. So yes, there are more people practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu today than there are practicing straight catch as catch can. Although I would argue that if you are doing what is now known as no gi, which is just grappling, as Gene LaBelle would call it, just grappling,
Yep.
It's much closer to catch as catch can than it is jiu-jitsu, because the gi really changes things. And if you look at the IBJJF rule set, you know, they bar a bunch of holds that what was it? Dean Lister said, you know, why ignore 50% of the body? Well, catch wrestling's been ignoring 0% of the body since the 1870s.
Right.
So, you know, I think you have to look at the impact. And the reason why I said that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu really isn't even a pimple on the butt of catch wrestling in terms of impact is you have to look what has come out of catch wrestling. So catch wrestling itself still exists. That's what I do for a living. I put on tournaments. I host training camps. I publish material. I produce videos and instructions, all that. So it's alive and well. There's a nice community. It's not huge, but it's thriving, okay, and growing. So catch is still going, and you look at the people who are doing catch, say in grappling or MMA, guys like Barnett or Shamrock or Sakuraba, they are always at the top. I mean, always, like at the very, very top of the rankings consistently. So even though we don't have a very big base of people practicing, we do find ourselves disproportionately represented in the higher rankings in the competitive realms. Because honestly, I believe it is the greatest martial arts combat sport the world has ever seen. Now, from catch, there's catch itself, which is really what my life's purpose is really to get everybody involved, man, woman, and child on earth. It's a big mission with the sport of catch as catch can wrestling, scientific wrestling, as either a fan, athlete, coach, promoter, or some combination of all of the above. But you also have to look beyond just the catch as catch can practice, you know, which is typically a rule set that is practiced with pins and submissions for the win. Okay. But beyond catch itself, catch was also the inspiration for freestyle and folk style wrestling. So if you were to count the number of catch wrestlers out, that it's not huge, but now you add on the number of folk style and freestyle wrestlers. Now we start getting a sizable community, even though they took the submissions out. Okay. But it's still this, I mean, it's derivative directly. The 1904 Olympics in London, you know, just like the Olympics when it goes from country to country, adopts the indigenous sport. In London in 1904, the freestyle was actually originally called amateur catch as catch can. And they took the dangerous holds out in the way that judo took the dangerous holds out of jiu-jitsu. But now we've got a base of catch wrestlers around the globe. We've got all the folk style, freestyle people in wrestling. Then you've got pro wrestling. And WWE, now while it's scripted, you find them bringing in all the MMA athletes like Ronda Rousey and Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley and all these guys to get legitimacy. But the actual rules that WWE does theatrically are like, and I'm talking on the straight singles matches, not like hardcore matches or table matches or any of that shit.
Right.
Like the straight singles matches are the old catch as catch can rule set, right? Win with a pin or a submission. So you see, like the impact is like massive that this sport. And then you could also argue that MMA is actually derivative of catch as catch can, or at least a catch as catch can influence. If you look at Pancrase, which had its first show a full month or two before UFC ever had its first show, right? And they were already doing things like Shuto and things of that nature that were proto MMA, which is where Eric Paulson came from, for example, that were kind of inspiring for MMA. Then, if you really want to piss off the jiu-jitsu people, you could point out that the guy that taught Helio and Carlos, Count Koma was his name in the catch wrestling world,
Yes.
or Maeda, he actually developed his style wrestling, his grappling style, this guard-centric being underneath, how to fight from underneath, in response to being on the catch wrestling circuit and wrestling catch as catch can man.
Very
So
interesting.
the impact of catch wrestling is huge. The problem is not enough people are actually literate enough in terms of grappling to know that, right?
Makes sense. Yeah, and that's very, very well stated. And yeah, I'm glad I was right. I thought it was Carlos Gracie Sr. that was there with Elio, and yeah, I had heard that the teacher that taught him Maeda, or whatever his authentic name was actually involved in catch, and it makes sense because catch having been around as the only submission wrestling at least 50, 60 years before the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu that was taught to the Gracie brothers. Absolutely, the senior meaning Carlos and Elio. Absolutely, it's and I think that the one thing that not to make it an argument back and forth, but I think one thing the jiu-jitsu community and some of their fans feel is that if you implement the catch wrestling rule set, then it pretty much eliminates people playing guard. Now, I understand this. If you're attacked on the street on the cement, you probably don't want to be the guy who's deciding to play guard and be on bottom, because A, you could be rolling around in glass and who knows what's on the ground, but B, there's no rules against soccer kicks and stomping someone in the head in a street fight, or even lifting something up and throwing it down on the person's face. So it probably
or look at the tragedy that happened in Brazil with what's his name, Leandro.
I mean,
dude,
yes.
like I'm not a big fan of this like what works in the street bullshit. I'm just going to be real, because I carry a knife and I have a concealed carry permit.
Absolutely.
Because that's what works in the freaking street. I'm just being real.
Yes.
Everything else is just bullshit. And if we look at our next closest possible thing to a fight that could be controlled without weapons or multiple opponents and all the things that are real in a fight, and that's MMA. Like we can look at the statistics. More champions, almost twice as many champions, come out of wrestling in MMA than they jiu-jitsu. And frankly, this is the thing. Like I've been pushing catch as catch can since 2003. That's when I started my business. So it's 20 years old now, which is crazy.
Yep.
But I've been knocking on every door, basically like a Mormon missionary. Hey, have you heard about the story about our Lord and Savior catch as catch can wrestling, and getting the door slammed in my face for 20 years. Okay.
For sure.
And the facts are the facts. There are, like, I published over 10,000 pages of historical documents showing double wrist locks, chokes, rear naked chokes, leg locks that all predate Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? And in many cases predate anything documented ever in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu.
Right.
So we know that this is documented. It's not even like controversial. It's just, it gets to be strangely political for some reason. And I think it's because, it's competitive. It's a competitive sport and people have pride and that kind of stuff. But, I don't think we should push the facts aside. So, like in MMA, the thing is I've been knocking on these doors forever, and jiu-jitsu has always not really been all that interested. And if they are interested, they kind of I'm just going to be real, they kind of steal the technique and then go rename it like Kimura trap or some shit.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, here's a picture from 1930 of your Kimura trap. You didn't
Right.
make anything up.
Right.
You know, it just drives me nuts. So, you know, the thing is I've had much more success in MMA gyms in terms of us running seminars and events and things of that nature. The MMA and prize fighting is much more open to catch as catch can and boxing than, say, retail martial arts with a belt system, because, you know, catch wrestling, the only belt color that matters for catch is gold.
Yes.
Right. That's one of my catchphrases that I use when I push this. But it's more than just a catchphrase. It's true. It's a prize fighting sport. That's where it evolved from. All the original professional wrestlers actually started out wrestling for side bets in gravel pits in the north of England and on bowling greens in the north of England. And the ones, after a long day's work in the coal mines and just this awful work situation, some of them got so good with these bets and the prize fighting that they could get rid of their normal day job. And those were the first professional wrestling. So prize fighting is really at the core, at the root of what catch as catch can is. It's really a betting sport, right? So I think it's very important for us to realize that, like, guys like MMA fighters and stuff, they don't want to wait till they're brown belt to have some black belt teach them leg locks or something, you know.
Right.
They're like, I just want whatever works and is going to win. That's what's important to me. And that's really the ethos of catch as catch can. And so, you know, there's some similarities. I actually find catch as catch can to be more similar to MMA than I do jiu-jitsu. One, because of the prize fighting mentality. You can't say, if you hear somebody say, oh, I've got a black belt in MMA or I've got a black belt in boxing, you kind of snicker like, yeah, what an idiot. Well, it's the same thing with catch wrestling. It doesn't work that way. It's just you either are a boxer or an MMA fighter or a catch wrestler or not. I mean, it's simple.
Yeah.
But beyond the prize fighting mentality, you know, it's similar because, you know, with catch, there's two ways to win, much like there are two ways to win in MMA, knockout or submission. Of course, there's a point system, but traditionally it's simple so your audience can just understand, oh, a knockout or submission, easy. Well, it's the same thing with catch, except instead of a knockout, it's a pin.
Yep.
And what that pin does is it helps to – I find that a lot of the MMA gyms really like catch wrestling as a cross-training modality because it does matter when you're on top if you're punching because you got gravity on your side. So the pin really incentivizes the grappler to stay on top and stay dominant and use gravity and use your weight in the same way that Josh Barnett pressure tapped Dean Lister. That was weight. That was gravity, you know, and body mechanics.
Absolutely.
But there's a lot of similarities, I think, more so between MMA and catch as catch can than there are between catch as catch can and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well stated. And I did want to shout out, and I was going to do that, but you beat me to it. Huge respect and condolences to the family of Leandro Lowe. This is a hugely, enormously successful, active competitor, only 33 years old. I saw Gordon Ryan put out a condolence post and mentioned that Leandro Lowe was one of only 3 men to beat Gordon Ryan at the black belt level. And so, you know, the guy was seriously good, and it's just a shame. So condolences to the family of Leandro Lowe and the
it's absolutely tragic.
Yeah, without a doubt. So question for you. The thing I was leading up to, and I appreciate your response, but I kind of wanted to get a little bit more detailed. The thing that I think a lot of jiu-jitsu guys question, and this is not trying to pit jiu-jitsu against catch, but I do appreciate you answer my question clearly and in detail, the differences and similarities. But just here's a general question. The implementation of the pin as a second method of victory in a catch wrestling rules matchup is eliminating the option of the jiu-jitsu guy playing guard. And may I ask your opinion, is that because of the fact that the catch wrestling experienced experts, because that's redundant, the catch wrestling experts generally feel that trying to win a matchup from your back just would not work at all in an actual street fight, so it's not something that they feel is valuable, or what's your thought? Because I think that if jiu-jitsu players were to hear maybe like a modified rule set from Catch, which is that you can win by pin, but it's got to be like a pro wrestling full 3-second pin. So that way the jiu-jitsu player maybe can play guard, and just as long as he's not held down for 3 full seconds. Because if it's 1 second, if it's a traditional collegiate wrestling pin, you can't play guard at all.
Yeah, no.
What's your thought about
No,
that?
no.
2 questions.
So this is really interesting because I've been around for like a minute. I went to UFC 2 in Denver. I was there live, and awesome. That's when I got bit by the bug. So it's been interesting to watch the evolution of not only MMA, but of the grappling that's derivative of MMA over the years. And back in the day, like 2000, I want to say this must have been 2004. I had the Keurig over at MMA.tv on the Underground for any old timers. On the Underground, I had Keurig gave me the first Catch Wrestling subgroup on the Underground. I moderated that.
Awesome.
And yeah, and it was cool. And I was so in the way that you spoke to Gene LaBelle a lot, I spoke to Carl Gotch a lot. And I actually did record a crap ton of it. So if anybody's interested and they want to actually learn from Carl, who is like known as the god of wrestling in Japan.
Absolutely.
He was the inspiration behind Pancrase.
Yeah.
Well, Billy Robinson was the one behind Sakuraba, and who is my coach. Yeah. But Carl was like a mentor. You can go to carlgotch.com, and I have hours and hours of mentoring phone calls between him and I. They're up for free. People can just enjoy it if they're interested in this. But back then, because I was in touch with Carl did not know how to use the internet at all. So people would ask me questions. I'd relay them to Carl, and then I'd post back any answers that he felt like answering. And somebody asked Carl, now mind you, this is 2004, okay?
Right. Way back.
So almost 20 years ago. Somebody asked me, like, hey, ask Carl what he thinks about the guard. And I find it funny because the response back then is they ridiculed him and they were very dismissive. This guy's a freaking fucking legend.
Absolutely.
Like legend.
Absolutely.
And people are ridiculing him. They're so illiterate in their grappling.
Yep.
But it's so funny because everything's been vindicated. So what Carl said, he said, if somebody did that to me,
right,
and gave me their legs,
I know it's coming.
If you don't break their leg, you should just quit wrestling.
Yeah.
If somebody gives that to now, here's the irony. Ever since fuck it, try a leg lock, or why ignore 50% of the body, this revolution in jiu-jitsu to do leg locks in the last 5-10 years, people don't pass guard anymore.
No.
They don't even care about guard.
Yep.
And it's the exact same thing that Carl was saying. And now, so there's a lot of this kind of stuff that people don't understand. Now, so scientific wrestling is kind of the arm of what I've been doing that does like education. So we do training camps, there's books, there's DVDs, there's all that kind of stuff, membership websites, all that kind of stuff. Okay. But I've also started back in 2007 with the help of Carl. It's the only catch as catch can rule set co-developed with Carl Gotch. I put out the King of Catch Wrestling. Which is an open tournament system, so we could actually get people competing under these rules, right? And I took that and even stepped it up a bit to my invitational, which is known as Shoot Pro Wrestling. So those people in pro wrestling know a shoot means a legitimate contest. So basically what I've been able to do is I've booked it with the very best guys I could. I've got world champions on the Shoot Pro Wrestling shows. You can go onto YouTube. I've held 3 shows so far. Always looking for sponsors, by the way. So anybody out there that's as passionate about this as me, and you go and see the product, every single show, our production values are exponentially better. So I'm really, really thrilled about it. But where I'm getting to with this is that you have to book jiu-jitsu guys because that's 95% of the market right now. So with the rule set, it is a 3-count pin. It's like pro wrestling, right? So a submission or a 3-count pin. 3 counts, unless you're a good pinner, that's very hard to hold somebody down.
Yes.
Plus, all you have to do is throw a shoulder up because it's both blades have to be down for a full 3 count. So what the jiu-jitsu guys do is they just do a lot of their guard work from the side instead of flat on their back.
Right.
But what the pin does is it makes grappling into a true spectator sport because it forces the action. These guys aren't just lazy laying on the ground. Well, not lazy, but you know what I mean? Like, if you go to a judo tournament or you go to a jiu-jitsu tournament, unless you know the rules or you have a friend who's wrestling or grappling or you're doing the grappling, it's boring as hell. If I took my mom or my daughter or my wife, they'd be on their phone the whole time because it's not interesting to your average person. But the pin, it makes it just like MMA, where your average Joe Schmo gets it. It's like, oh my God. And there's always this constant action. So, to me, jiu-jitsu is very interesting, and I have a lot of respect for jiu-jitsu. I do. There is this kind of rivalry that has gone back to the very, very beginning of jiu-jitsu with catch wrestling. But I will say this, despite the rivalry, I have a lot of respect for jiu-jitsu guys in particular because they're very game. Like, typically, a lot of them are very game and out. They'll just get out there and want to test stuff.
Yep.
And that's fantastic. But, there is this dependency. It's so guard-centric, right? Like, they have this control position known as the guard, or maybe half guard, okay? But it's basically the same premise about controlling a man with your legs that is so central to everything that they do. So all their setups are from there. But the funny thing is with catch as catch can, we really don't use that control position, but we have a ton of other ones, from Nelsons to cradles, to leg locks, to different kinds of rides. So, they're very similar, but they're very different at the same time. I'm very grateful that jiu-jitsu has had its success because, to be honest, most of the people that come to me, they come to me because they want to do something that nobody else is doing and not very many people know about. And I'm willing to teach anybody anything. There's no real restriction. You know what I mean? I'm just here to coach people to win. And so I'm grateful for jiu-jitsu because there's so many people now that are turned on to jiu-jitsu because of it. And it is easier. Your average Joe, showing up in the gi, like wearing the pajamas, laying on the ground or starting on your knees and all that, it makes it much more accessible to a group of people that would never in a million years have gotten involved with grappling if it was starting from the feet.
Absolutely. And I think that depending on your general health and your age, it's a lot safer. And I'm not going to say nobody older will want to start a matchup on their feet, but I think probably for weekend warriors and maybe people over 45 or 50, I think it's better they start from their knees. Wouldn't you agree?
I mean, you're going to have, so this is really a difference in business model, honestly. So, when you have a retail, this is why most catch wrestlers aren't really welcomed at jiu-jitsu gyms.
Right.
And they're always like, oh, you guys are dirty or you're mean. And I'm like, dude, it's not banned in the rules. Like, it's allowed, it's grappling.
Yep.
But it is just the shift because, traditionally catch wrestling is a prize fighting art, right? And so it's only really, it operates more off of a boxing gym model, okay?
Yep.
Than a martial arts gym model where, if I run a martial arts gym or a jiu-jitsu gym, I have a fight team, but that's not what keeps the lights on.
Right.
What keeps the lights on are the kids and the weekend warriors and the guys that just do it so they can go to Buffalo Wild Wings and watch the UFC pay-per-view and talk to their buddies like they're actually fighting or something.
Yep.
So it's difficult to transition that because it is a hell of a lot rougher. Now, you will find gyms that do catch wrestling on a retail side, but it's much harder. You're going to find them a lot of times are inside of MMA gyms and in boxing gyms and in pure grappling gyms. And the interesting thing is ever since this leg lock revolution shit that's that's been going on forever in other sports, but is new to the jiu-jitsu people. It's sure as hell looking. I mean, I look at the Danaher Death Squad, and it's all these like, muscular young dudes in Speedos doing leg locks. I'm gonna be honest, it looks a lot like the Lion's Den from the early 90s.
Yeah. Yep. That's true.
So as the sport, as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu like liberalizes or opens up the rule set a bit and isn't so dogmatic, it ends up looking a lot more like catch. So, you look at like BJJ Fanatics, they've been fantastically supportive of catch wrestling. They not only did they invite me, which blew my mind, I was so humbled, to do some instructionals for them. But they've got like Josh Barnett, Harry Smith, all these other guys that are Neil Melanson, these guys who are real serious about catch, teaching it. But it's funny. I look at these instructionals, and now you have Danaher talking about pinning, and I'm like, okay, dude, I've been talking about pinning since 2003. I actually brought Wade Chalice in, who's the Guinness World Record holder for the most wins and pins in all of wrestling, into the grappling scene to educate you guys about this. And now you're talking about pinning, or you're talking about cradles, which is something that I've been pushing. And honestly, it's something that's really shocking to me that people didn't clue in earlier, which just goes to show you, like, I don't know, they called it during lockdown mass formation psychosis or whatever, how everybody just went along with the crowd, kind of like the Nazis in Germany and shit. But, it's funny, like you can look back as far as Hickson versus Mark Schultz, and Mark Schultz cradled Hickson Gracie, who's supposed to be the greatest ever or whatever, for a half hour. Didn't somebody start? I mean, I did. I started thinking like, shit, the cradle is a massive hole in the guard game.
Yeah.
Like they're not dealing with it. So anyway, I don't even know where I was really going with all that, but
Right.
they're very complimentary, and I'm not antagonistic against jiu-jitsu at all.
Yep.
The only way I'm antagonistic is when there's ignorance and this lack of grappling literacy and respect,
Right.
And really stealing the techniques and renaming them and giving them like Japanese names. It's like, dude, oh my gosh, guys, get over it. It's a double wrist lock. I don't know what to tell you. Got words in English that are the same amount of syllables and same difficulty and less, jargony and prestigious sounding, but whatever,
Absolutely well stated. Well, I think we got about 5 or 6 minutes left here. I want to throw a few things at you, kind of rapid fire rather. Maybe give me some short answers, and then we can wrap it up. But I really appreciate all the great insight. So I know with what you mentioned, which is definitely something that a lot of people need to embrace and hadn't thought of, is that with the fact that the catch wrestling was really a predecessor to the freestyle and Greco-Roman, or at least there with a huge influence on that a lot of the guys really are part of the catch wrestling community, and most of them seem to get their submissions on top. How do you think Bo Nickel is going to do in his MMA career?
Oh, he's going to do just like all the other champion wrestlers do, and the D1 guys that walk into a jiu-jitsu place and all the black belts refuse to wrestle him, right? He's going to crush it. My challenge to these wrestlers is like, don't forget your wrestling because you're trying to learn submissions. There are more ways to set up submissions than from the guard. You don't have to unlearn wrestling. I would take Bo Nickel, and I would I've got a number of coaches underneath me. The challenge with catch wrestling ultimately is kind of quality control. Anybody could just throw up a shingle and call themselves a catch wrestler.
Right.
So you've got to, like, if you're looking for somebody, you really need to do your homework, like, and make sure that the person knows the right people, knows the techniques, is proven. I can't even believe how lucky I am to have been able to train with these guys and be endorsed by these guys. But somebody like Bo Nickel, dude, or any of these great wrestlers, man, I would just be tightening up their cradles and showing them how to set up their submissions from cradles. I look at the cradle, I call the cradle the wrestler's guard.
Nice.
It's really a great control position. If you just start cradling people, which should hopefully be natural to somebody at Bo Nickel's level, and start looking from a cradle, how do I set up a leg lock? How do I set up an arm lock? How do I set up a neck crank?
Nice.
It's pretty easy.
I like that. Now, the guys from Dagestan, Habib Nurmagomedov, his friends and cousins, Islam Makhachev, Megomed Ankalaev, the retired Zabit Megomed Sharapov. so many other of these absolute killers. Do you feel like they have a similarity to catch wrestling? A, and then B, do you think if we had a catch wrestler get in there and really learn the game of MMA, that those guys could be very competitive with the guys from Dagestan?
Oh, 100%. I mean, you give me seriously any of these guys that are D1 wrestlers, and you just teach them catch. And I'm very close friends with Brandon Ruiz, who is a FILA World Grappling Games multi-time champion, and Machado third-degree black belt, I think. He's a All-American Greco-Roman out of BYU. Very close friend of mine, and we talk about this all the time. And it's like, man, if we could just get these D1 guys who come over to MMA because they actually want to make some money instead of just some crap low-end coaching job at the high school or whatever, because there's no real other place for wrestlers to go anymore. If we could just get our hands on these guys and just get them to understand that you could keep your wrestling and use wrestling as setups for these positions, man. Honestly, the sky would be the limit. I mean, wrestling is already, without question, the most dominant base for MMA athletes. If you had as many Sakurabas as you did Hicks and Gracie's, I guarantee you there'd be no question which is better, which sport.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of that, coming up in I think only several weeks from now, it's actually about 8 or 9 weeks away. But we've got some really interesting fights. Comment on the headliner if you could. Although if you're familiar with the co-main event, I'd love your thoughts there. The headliner is going to be Charles Oliveira, former champion. The only reason he lost was because he came in slightly overweight on a day that the scale was actually kind of in question. Nevertheless, he did beat Justin Gaethje on that day, I believe it was, and then he did subsequently lose his title. So this is going to be for the vacant title, Charles Oliveira against Islam Makhachev, and then the co-main would be Benil Dariush against the man from Poland, Mateusz Gamrot. If you're not familiar with the guys in the co-main, just give me your thoughts on the main. But if you're familiar with the co-main, let me know your thoughts there as well. Maybe
I'm not really familiar with the co-main,
okay.
But I would not. For me personally, would not bet against the guys from Eastern Europe. It's just me personally. Like if there's money on the line, I'm going to bet on an Eastern European wrestler. They're some of the toughest people on the planet, right? And so. That's kind of where I would go with that. Like, I do think that, for example, I just did a training camp out in San Diego. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago. And we actually had, I've had multiple champs, but we just had Liz Carmouche. She was at the camp for all 2 days. It's pretty much a grind, but for her, she's a pro athlete. She handles it fine. I do think we're starting to crack the nut. But you need to see more of the stuff like we saw how, everybody fights for these rear naked chokes. Well, Khabib is, in my philosophy, like, why would you go for a rear naked choke when a face crank is faster and easier? And he proved it on that Conor McGregor fight. Like,
yes.
So any of those Dagestani guys, like, dude, I'm sold. I mean, I have a lot of respect for the intensity they bring and the wrestling base that they bring. And, Sambo, Sambo even credits Catch as Catch Can with developing leg locks first. Nice. And then they took the leg locks and refined it and used it in their rule sets. So, it's very much a catch wrestling style. The other ones, we were talking about Gene LaBelle, some of the guys that I see that are the closest to catch are the judo-based athletes. The judo outside of the gi is very close in terms of technique to a lot of what I've seen in Catch as Catch Can. So you look at like Justin Flores. I watch a lot of his technique stuff, and I'm like, dude, you are like so close to the Catch as Catch Can style. It's like, it's absolutely crazy. Yeah. I see him do stuff that I've only seen taught to me by these old timers. So he's kind of recreating a lot of that. But you see it with Carl. Carl is where I was originally thinking of it. Carl Parisian.
Yep.
A lot of his style looked very much to me like catch can.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of crossover too. It's the thing is you can win with a jiu-jitsu technique in catch wrestling, and you can win in jiu-jitsu with a catch wrestling technique.
Yep.
So at a certain point, it becomes so much more about like the particular athlete.
Absolutely. Very well stated. And Carl Parisian was amazing. I actually met him accidentally at the airport before the fight, maybe a month before the fight was scheduled with Matt Hughes, and I was wishing him luck and telling him I'm a big fan, and he said the fight's canceled, unfortunately, because there was an injury. So I don't know if I found out before it was published, although back then there wasn't nearly as much coverage on the internet, but he was great, man. The Heat, Carl Parisian, for people that don't know, look him up. So in the last couple minutes we have you, Jake, if you have one of your mace bells around, your creation, I'd love to maybe see that, right? Or let people know where we can buy that, and then let us know where we can find your tournaments or seminars and anything else.
I wish I had one. They're all so my office is I set up a studio in my basement, and so but all my maces are upstairs. The mace has been very interesting to me because I never really expected that to get as big and as popular as it did, or as it is. For those people who don't know, it's basically like if you look at a kettlebell and they have those looped handle, a mace bell is the kettlebell, like the bowling ball end, but it has a long broom handle. And originally it comes from Persian and Hindu wrestling culture, but I brought it over. Actually, it was Carl Gotch who let me swing his in 2006. Nice. And I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe there is not actually a production mace out in the world. And so I kind of spearheaded that. And here we are again, 15, 20 years later. And they're like, I walked into a 24-hour fitness and they had a mace. And I was like, dude, I invented that. And they just kind of looked at me sideways like, yeah, you did. Yeah, you did, old man. Right. I'm like, no, I did.
I love it. It really is yours. That's awesome. Man.
Yeah. Yeah. But the funny thing is, I treated it almost as a throwaway kind of thing, because I really only wanted it for grip strength. As a wrestler, everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses. And what I found that served me really well was having a crazy, crazy grip beyond cardio, having really good lungs, good wind. And I have not found anything that works as good for wrestling grip strength as the mace. And that was really all I saw it as. I was like, well, kettlebells are trendy, so I probably could get this made and I could probably market it to people, maybe CrossFit, I don't know. But I was really pushing it in MMA. And man, I'll tell you, I did a lot of work on it, but a few other people, because these things, it's like kettlebells. You can't patent them. I mean, you can, but it's a waste of money. Right. How many different kettlebell manufacturers are there now?
Exactly.
Based on versus back in the day when Dragon Door was the only ones making them. Well, it's the same thing with the mace, and now they're like freaking everywhere. I wish I had one. I should keep one down here for occasions like this. But the original mace bell was made by Torque Athletic, but they decided to go a different way with their business. They got completely out of the fitness business, and that kind of took my original design off the market. So anybody who owns one of those is sitting on a collector's item. But I do endorse one mace, and it's actually put out by the big fitness company Sorinex. They make a mace through my friend Greg Walsh. It's called the Wolf Brigade mace. But if people want to just go check it out, they're really these are like the Lexus or the Teslas of maces. These are really nice. You can just go to Macebell, MACE, and then Bell, BELL, macebell.com, and it points you right to their website.
Fantastic. And that's definitely something that someone should have. They want to improve their grip and just overall dynamic and explosive movement. In about a minute or a minute and a half, could you give me the best place where people can find how to follow your catch wrestling tournaments or seminars or anything else? You got so much great stuff going.
Hey, thank you very much. And I appreciate all the time and the great conversation.
Sure, me too.
So scientificwrestling.com is probably the best hub. I'm pretty active on Instagram, just at Scientific Wrestling. If you want to get involved with us, we do have an affiliate program. So just like you could affiliate with, Gracie Barra or the Machados or
Right.
10th Planet. We have a scientific wrestling affiliate. We have gyms in Canada and three of them in the United States. We just launched it. I'm really actually proud of that. And then also check out, I'm really proud of Shoot Pro Wrestling. And you can go to shootprowrestling.com or just Google, type in YouTube, Shoot Pro Wrestling. We have 3 different events. I would probably watch the second and third. The second one was absolutely nuts. The third was great. It was all singles matches with a middleweight tournament to put the belt on our middleweight champion. But the second Shoot Pro Wrestling was a tag team tournament. It was the first time that competitive tag team pro wrestling was ever held in the world. And it was nuts. It was absolutely nuts. So I'd recommend those are probably the best places if people are interested.
I love that. So tag team in an actual shoot, an actual real wrestling, catch wrestling competition. That is unique. I never even heard of that. And
all the guys, honestly, like once they do tag, they're like, can we do more tag matches? Like they don't even want to mess with like straight singles matches anymore because it's so fun.
I love that.
But you need to have 2 refs. This is something I learned is it's like there's so much action going on. You actually have to have 2 refs with that many people because what we do is like when there is a tag and we allow straight tags and also blind tags, just like in pro wrestling, when there's a tag, we give them a slow count of 5 for interference time where there could be 2 opponents against 1 for a fight. It turns it into a riot, man. It's like a street fight. It's crazy. So you can go see Shoot Pro Wrestling 2. That's the tag team tournament. And Shoot Pro Wrestling 3 was the middleweight tournament. And Jacoby Jones, who won, he's just a stud MMA fighter, and he just won high rollers as well. So really fantastic wrestling and grappling. If you get a chance, check those out.
Absolutely. It sounds great. And if people want to support you on social media or stay up to date with everything you're doing, what's the best social media source that you can respond to? I know you're busy.
Yeah, I would say Scientific Wrestling on Instagram, which is just @ and then Scientific Wrestling.
Fantastic. Well, Jake Shannon, I really appreciate this, man. I've learned so much from you on top of what I already knew. You're a wealth of information, one of the most experienced experts in the world of catch wrestling, man. And it's just been a treat and a pleasure to chat with you. Definitely want to do it again sometime down the line if you have time.
No, I love it. Actually, I got a tattoo. It says "Do it again." I don't know if you can see it from my coach Billy Robinson because that was one of his things. So yeah, let's do it again. That'd be great.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Same here. Look forward to it. Thank you again, my friend. Have a great night.
Thank you. Thank you.
You got it. And that was Mr. Jake Shannon. So much to learn. And I know, Dr. Adam Roorda, you usually don't want segments to go that long. This is one of the few that you didn't seem to have a problem with because there's so much good stuff from him, huh?
Oh, yeah. Hey, get into wrestling and I'm all about it.
Yeah. It sure would be interesting if he got a guy like Bo Nickel and were to get him expert with submissions from the top. Essentially, it really would be a guy that you could put up against the Eastern Bloc guys, the Dagestani guys like that. I mean, that seems like that's maybe what the answer the USA may need.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
That sentiment and that statement, I think catch wrestling thrown in on these D1 wrestlers going into the MMA space, I think that is the answer.
Yeah.
And even against these top tier jiu-jitsu guys, like jiu-jitsu just doesn't have it for these Dagestanis.
It seems like not, even though Charles Oliveira could be the exception, but then that wouldn't necessarily prove the sport has it as much as he individually has it.
Right.
Over Makhachev, and he might, you know what I mean? But yeah, definitely. I think with the D1 wrestlers, they should really embrace catch. They really should. And I like the fact that in his tournaments you do get the 3-second pin, because if it wasn't for that, you were stopping someone from wanting to play guard at all. Now they can play guard as long as their shoulders are not down for 3 full seconds, and you can go on your side anyway, which is you tend to not want to be flattened out anyway in jiu-jitsu. But just definitely some really great stuff, and his lineage is amazing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's jump into for a few minutes, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's just go over a couple fights.
Yeah,
here,
maybe
Colin.
10 minutes, maybe. We'll wrap
probably
up.
not that long.
Okay.
Since
all right.
I went a little over, but
okay.
let's definitely go over the Nunes matchup.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I remember we were asking, I think it was Emily Ducote's thought, and I think one other female guest, a little higher. Yeah. And so Cynthia Calvillo tried to make it up at 125. She's not a tall girl, but she is, I think, in her mid-30s now. And I think she just felt like being a little healthier and a little stronger. But she was just too undersized for 125. So she's back at 115, right? She's in her mid-30s, as is Nina. Can we check to make sure, though, exactly where they are? 35 for Cynthia. And I bet you Nina is close to the same. 36. Yeah. So here's the thing. Nina is married to Amanda Nunes, who is a multi-millionaire fighter. And it's not like they've got Conor McGregor money or Elon Musk money, but they may have $5-10 million in the bank.
That escalated quickly.
Yeah. I know. From Elon, I know the difference between Conor to Elon Musk is a huge gap. But don't think I'm an idiot. I know that for people out there. But anyway, with a child, they just had a child that Nina carried. Yeah. And they've got about a year and a half old child. Nina doesn't need this paycheck. She just doesn't.
Right.
And at 36 years old, I mean, I know she was always ambitious. She was always a good fighter. But the question is she really going to try to pull everything out to win this fight? On the flip side, Cynthia Calvillo doesn't have a multimillionaire spouse. And this fight is probably important to her. The 60 grand she may earn, or 80 or 100 or whatever, is hugely important. I think that motivation is probably going to carry her through. Not only that, but she is a pretty big, if not tall. She's a pretty
and I
thick
agree with the
girl
odds makers on this one. They have it almost 2-1. So
yeah, and in all honesty, Nina may walk away. A lot of people are thinking Nina may walk away after this fight, win or lose, because she just doesn't need it. But anyway, we'll see. But I think I got Cindy, as they call it, Cynthia Calvillo.
Yep.
Got Cindy there. Fight below that, not too much time, but you got Yasmin, whose nickname is Yasmin, versus Yasmin. So Yasmin versus Yasmin. The Mexican fighter Yasmin Huaraguay, I think it is. Huaraguay is undefeated, and I think she's the A side of this fight. I think Yasmin, the 20-year-old, if she wins, she'd be the youngest fighter ever. I think, other than John Jones, to get a win in the UFC at age 20. Maybe I'm wrong, or she'd be pretty close to it. But I think this fight, the odds makers have it right, and I think Yasmin Lucindo is being brought in kind of as cannon fodder or sacrificial lamb for Yasmin Huaraguay, the Mexican fighter. So you get, I think the odds should be even bigger on that. So I have Huaraguay.
Yeah, they have it in the right direction.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I got Huaraguay.
Okay, how about this one?
Devin Clark, the brown bear, a really good guy. He's been on our show several times, out of Jackson Wink. He's usually fighting guys a lot taller than him, at 6 feet tall and 205. This time he's an inch taller than his opponent. Azmat Mirzakhanov. Let's take a look at Mirzakhanov really quick. Mirzakhanov caught that flying knee, I think, on Tafan Nchukwi. He was losing that fight 2-0. So I like Devin. I like Devin in this fight. I know Devin's old. No, he's not older. How old is Devin? Devin's 33, 34?
32.
32. So Devin's younger with the more experience, a little bit rangier. I got Devin here, and I think for some reason Devin may be a slight dog. Can you look?
Yeah, he is a slight dog.
Yeah, I got Devin. I think Devin should be a favorite there. Not that the other guy can't do it, but I'm not sold so far yet on the Azamat Mirzakhanov. I think odds makers are starting to become afraid of anyone with an OV at the end of their name. I think one of our fans out there, who's also an expert, Alex Bambamov, I know, will say they should be afraid. I know. But I think not every guy with OV at the end of his name is Habib or Islam. And I think that Azamat here, Mirzakhanov, is not one of these world beaters. I could be wrong, but I think I got Devin Clark.
We'll find out real fast after this one. I'm going to agree with you on this one. I'm going with Devin Clark.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe we'll be surprised, but I'm going with Devin Clark on this one. And I'm going to retouch on this other one, Nate Landwehr. Listen, I think the odds makers have it backwards on this one. I'm going heavy on this one. I'm not recommending anybody else does it. If you take that bet, that's on your back if it does well. it's on my back. But if it does poorly, it's on your own back. So,
yeah, I agree. The land where I call him the land shark, although I know that's not his nickname. I forgot what his nickname is, but it's something else. But he's a tough guy, man. On land or by land or by sea. Landwehr is a guy that can fight, and I do agree. I think he's a very live dog there, being about a 2.5 to 1 underdog over David Onama. Really quick, I want to touch on a lower card on the undercard. I think Martin Boudet, who's also a 2.5 to 1 favorite, I think he just absolutely takes it to Lukasz Brzezinski, the man from Poland. Although there's so many tough fighters, they have a lot of heart guys in Poland. But I think Martin Boudet wins that one convincingly. Then we go all the way up to the main event. Interesting fight. The fighter with way more experience is Dominic Cruz. But in all honesty, when you have like the experience that Marlon Vera has, having fought like a half a dozen absolute killers, I think that's enough. So is it true that Cruz has fought twice as many fights against absolute killers, like a dozen fights instead of 6? Yes, but I think at some point you don't need any more experience than you already have. Marlon Vera is just 30 years old, or is he still 29? 36 years old for Cruz, and Vera is 29, still not even 30. They're both similar in height. Cruz might even be an inch taller. And although I think it's pretty close. They have Vera at 5'8",
same height, according to this, anyways.
And I know they've always varied that. I've seen.
Listen, I've got to go with Vera on this one.
Yeah,
his win against Rob Font, and for the last couple of years, he's been one of my faves. Yeah, that win over Font has me thinking that he's going to take Cruz here.
Yeah, the odds makers think so too. I mean, Vera, we've always believed in Vera. We had Vera on our show about 2.5 years ago and did an amazing interview with him. He's just had so much good stuff to say. It's kind of like a changing of the guard fight, and I know that's Vera's thought. I don't know that I've seen anyone as big a favorite over Cruz other than Henry Cejudo. Cruz is like the billion-dollar man as far as how many knee surgeries he's had and how his whole joints and ligaments and everything been put together. He's like a cyborg. So
at this point, I mean, it only makes sense. I mean, listen, he is a beast, and he totally has a chance at winning this one. But I think the odds makers have it right.
Yeah, I think
it's going to be toe to toe. It's probably going to come down to a decision, in my opinion.
Yeah, the younger man who's harder hitting, probably taking it in Vera, because Cruz never had a tremendous amount of power.
No, unless it's an obvious decision. If it's not a unanimous decision, I'm just going to tell you this: they'll probably give it to Cruz.
Maybe so, if
it comes down close to
possibly, because I'll tell you what,
if it's split, they're going to go Cruz.
Maybe so. Cruz has a way of frustrating people. His movement and his cadence is so hard to figure because he's constantly changing it. He's changing his timing. He's changing his angles. Nothing was repetitive. He's almost like a chess player. And I think had Cruz not had so many problems with his knee, he would have even had a more prolific career than he's already had. And he's, like I was telling Adam before the show started, he's one of the last throwbacks to the World Extreme Cage Fighting Organization. He was the champ there, and that organization has been gone for, I think, 15 years now. But one of the last warriors, Donald Cerrone, was there too, and Uriah Faber, both of whom are retired, I believe. And so Cruz is, for people to remember WEC on Versus with the blue cage floor, man. Great fights. But yeah, probably Marlon Vera here, although you got to be careful. Cruz is so tricky. This is going to be an interesting battle. Cruz is about making people miss, making people look silly, effective defense, brilliant defense. Vera is about pressure, absolute war, and it's going to be interesting if one of them can impose their game, then that could give them a sizable advantage. Just in my book.
I agree with that.
Yeah, but yeah, it should be a good card. A lot of fun fights. Guys fight hard in these fight night cards. I also think Ariane Lipski is going to win over Priscilla Cachoeira in a fight that was scheduled for last week and rescheduled due to.
This is for some reason it seems to be all out wars seem to happen on these fight night cards for some reason, and there must be arrangements that are made that we don't know about if they really just go all the way
Maybe
all out.
some locker room bonuses, you hope?
Not just locker room bonuses, but I think agreements for the next fight, and you know where their placement is on a
pay-per-view.
Pay-per-view.
Yeah, it could be. It makes sense because on a pay-per-view, people really don't want to have to pay $75 for a card where people aren't going for it. So I could kind of see your point. If you prove to go for it enough on these fight night cards, that might make Sean and Mick and Dana want to have
100%. So there's some backroom deals that we don't know about. But hey, Colin, I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. I'm going to be throwing my money at Landwehr this weekend here, and we'll see where that lands. I may actually make a prediction on which round because I think that one's going to be a knockout. And if I do that, it'll be on my social media. Everybody make sure to check out the Hannibal TV if you're on our Facebook or one of our social media accounts, or you end up seeing us floating around the internet somewhere. Make sure to head on over to YouTube. Check out the Hannibal TV. If you're on the Hannibal TV, check out at MMA Power Hour on all socials. Not super active nowadays, but we do have a Facebook group that is very active.
Over 1,000 members?
Yeah, over 1,000 right now. And, we have well over that on a lot of our social platforms. Yes. But we have kind of strayed away from the news format just doing this show. So we're kind of just changing over to that group. It's just a lot easier to maintain, and it's just the two of us right now. So show some love, show some support there, and we appreciate it so much. Also, make sure to check out my cryptocurrency Lith token. We're doing some cool things over there with physical NFTs, brand new technology associated with physical items and NFTs. Actually, we're the only ones doing true physical NFTs. So it's lithtoken.io. Everybody, I'm calling tonight, and I'm handing it over to you, Colin.
Absolutely, Adam. Thank you for what you do. Real quick, can you change the picture that I'm looking at from Marlon Vera to Nate Landwehr? I appreciate that. I'll make a couple comments as I'm closing things down. And but yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Adam Roorda, for everything you do, man. I really appreciate it. We're still killing it, and we're still working toward getting better and better. Thanks so much. So Nate Landwehr is known as the Train, and he is a killer. I think it's a very good bet. I think just sometimes having these guys that are not proven end up being 3-1 favorites against a guy who's just grinding and grinding and grinding ends up being a mistake. Sometimes not. I mean, the bottom line is if Onama smashes and takes out Landwehr and then continues on, and a year from now, Onama is like this. David Onama is this top 20 guy. Yeah, right. Yeah, it could be. You know what I mean? But yeah, I like it. But yeah, I think that Nate Landwehr will take this, and it's going to be a great card. Anyway, thank you so much, Dr. Adam Roorda, for what you do. Anyone jumping in and supporting us, we appreciate you guys so much. From Mark, who's been with us for the longest time, to Daniel Alexander, and several other people. We appreciate you so much. Matthew Granahan, thank you for helping set up that interview with Jake Shannon. And Jake Shannon, thank you so much, brother. Huge respect to you, man, for coming on and sharing all your insight and wisdom, man. You have a ton and are definitely one of the foremost experts in catch wrestling. That's about it, guys. We appreciate you, and keep supporting. Next week, we're going to have another great show, possibly 2, even 3 guests. And we'll let you know by social media. That's about it. Take good care of yourself. Spread the love in a positive way. Be that guy. Be that girl. Let someone know that you got their back, even if you haven't talked to them for a while. It could make the difference. A lot of people are struggling hard during these hard times. Take good care of your pets. The love you get back is worth it a millionfold. The love from a pet, man. Take good care of yours. Make sure they're safe. Have cold water, good food, and all the love that you can give them. Love yourself. We appreciate you so much for the entire team, which tonight is Dr. Adam Roorda, myself, from the MMA Power Hour. This is Colin Crandall, and I am tapping out.